HorizonTV, the beacon for the nation. This program is suitable for general viewing.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is a beautiful Friday morning. This is the Muslim Insight, the weekly news recap of today's matters affecting the Muslim community in this country and the world, as well as the review of today's Friday Bulletin, the only Muslim news bulletin in the country. My name is Nadia Osman and my sign language interpreter is Ilhan Noor. Before we give you the news, first we want to give you the headlines. The Chief Qadi Judicial Service Commission shortlists 5 candidates for the Chief Qadi position.
I'm told that up to about 600,000+ per month of money will be saved by the hospital from procuring this commodity from Nairobi.
First oxygen system. Garissa County launches first oxygen system. Will see the county save over 500,000 Kenya shillings monthly.
Madawa ya kulevya na chief both cannot stay in the same location. One has to give way.
War on drugs. Local leaders put on notice of a drug menace in Isiolo County. Find out why. For that, now on our top story, the search for the new Chief Qadi has kicked off after the Judicial Service Commission on Monday announced the list of shortlisted candidates. A total of 24 applications were received by the closure of business on April 28, 2023, following applications of the position advertised on April 14, 2023. 5 candidates have been shortlisted for interviews for the position of the Chief Qadi that was left vacant following the retirement of former Chief Qadi Sheikh Ahmed Hussein Al-Muhdar. Among the 5 candidates shortlisted for the Chief Qadi position are the current Deputy Chief Qadi Sheikh Sukyan Hassan Omar, Upper Hill Senior Principal Qadi Sheikh Athman Abdul Halim Hussein, Kericho Resident Qadi Sheikh Idris Nyaboga, Machakos Resident Qadi Sheikh Muhammad Kutwa Abdullah, and Dr. Hassan Omar Kinywa. The new Chief Qadi is to be recruited under the revised policy of the JSC scheme of service, a position that is now equated to that of a Chief Magistrate. The Qadi's court jurisdiction is limited to the determination of the question of Muslim law relating to personal status, marriage, divorce and inheritance in proceedings in which all the parties profess the Islam as the religion. Now moving on to Garissa County, where Garissa County launched its first oxygen system that will see the county save over 500,000 Kenya shillings monthly. The 283-litre per minute pressure swing absorption oxygen plant worth 26.8 million Kenya shillings was installed by the Reaching Impact Saturation and Epidemic Control Project funded by the United States Agency for International Development.
I think as Garissa we are now set. We've been running up and down during COVID. BOC was actually packed and they were giving oxygen in terms of priorities. So you can imagine traveling from Garissa 300 kilometers plus with cylinders, loading a bus or loading a GPO or a vehicle government official to actually go and look for this commodity. Now at our comfort zone, we are going to have this commodity available in Garissa, and I know we are also going to support the private facilities who are actually going for these commodities again 300 kilometers.
First of all, it gives us, the greatness that we are now slowly becoming a level 5 hospital, a proper level 5 hospital where we are able to provide the most essential services. Number two, in terms of financial saving, I'm told that up to about 600,000+ per month of money will be saved by the hospital from procuring this commodity from Nairobi. I'm told that up to about 600,000+ per month of money will be saved by the hospital from procuring this commodity from Nairobi. Of course, it also expands the breadth of the hospital in terms of its reach out to not only the sub-counties and the far corners of the county, but also even to the neighboring other counties who will make use of this very important commodity.
When COVID started, Japaigo was funded by USAID to first come partner with Garissa to ensure that all the people here who require critical care are able to be put in ventilators. And through USAID, we got ventilators donated to Garissa. Who can remember that? The sole ventilators were donated to Garissa at the height of COVID.
Thank you for that report, Salma. Now moving on to Isiolo County, where Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has called on local leaders led by the area chiefs and other leaders to fight the drug menace in the county among the youth. Speaking during a church service in Isiolo, Gachagua said the drug menace is a major problem in the county and is leading to the destruction of lives of many young people. He urged the leaders to work together to come up with a plan to fight the drug menace and save the youth from its destructive effects.
Katika ile ripoti nimepata ya mambo ya madawa ya kulevya, drug and substance abuse hapa Isiolo is a bit worrisome. Iko si hali nzuri. Madawa ya kulevya imejaa hapa Isiolo, hasa hapa town, na imeanza kutembea mashinani. And in the next few weeks nitaongea na regional commissioner wa Eastern, tutaweka mkutano mkubwa na viongozi na maofisa wote wa usalama. Tumesema machief hawa wanajua pahali madawa iko. And the new policy direction from our government is simple. Madawa ya kulevya na chief both cannot stay in the same location. One has to give way. Na yule ambaye ataamua ni chief kwa sababu ako na akili, madawa haina akili. So chief ndio ataamua ya kwamba ni yeye atakaa ama ni madawa ya nini. Vile vile tumekubaliana the station commanders, there will be no transfer of station commanders who fail to deal with drugs, because transferring him is transferring a problem to another part of Kenya.
Thank you for that report. Now, residents of Lamu County have welcomed the move by the government to start plans to reopening the Kenya-Somalia border that was closed in 2011 due to insecurity. Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki announced last week after a meeting between high-level delegations from Kenya and Somalia that Mandera Bulahawa border post will be opened in the next 30 days, followed by Liboy Harhar in Garissa County in 60 days, and then Kiunga Raskamboni will resume operations in 3 months' time. He said deliberations are also underway with the intent of opening a fourth border point that will open cross-border movement in Wajir County pending an announcement.
Mwanzo tuipongeze serikali ya Kenya na vile vile serikali ya Somalia kwa kubaliana kufungua mipaka. Hiyo ni dalili kuwa hali ya usalama inarudi hali ya kawaida, na sisi Lamu tumekuwa na historia kubwa na ya kufanya biashara na majirani yetu Somalia, hasa maeneo haya ya ambayo tunapakana na wao, na hii ni natija kubwa kwa watu wetu, manake uhusiano mzuri mara nyingi kutokana na biashara.
Mpaka kufunguliwa kwa mpaka kwetu itasaidia sana, kwa sababu kuna wenzetu ndugu zetu ambao kusaidia Kemboni, mpaka ukifunguliwa tulikuwa ni free kuja hapa na wakipata services kama kwa mfano mambo ya health services na kupata bidhaa kutoka Kenya, na sisi pia vile vile kupata bidhaa kutoka Somalia. Bidhaa za Somalia zenyewe ni rahisi, alafu kutakuwa na biashara ya kununua vitu kutoka Somalia ukija kuziuza Kenya, kwa sababu vitu kule ni rahisi.
Mstahiki Governor atanitokea ushahidi wakati tulipokuwa na mizozo ya ardhi pale kwa waziri wa ardhi alipokuja. Tuliwahi kuzungumza, mimi mwenyewe nikiwa ni mmoja, nilisema kuwa kuna haja ya boda yetu ifunguliwe, kwa sababu boda zikifunguliwa tunaimarika kiuchumi. Watu wataenda kutafuta riziki, biashara zitakuja, county itapata revenue, na tukipata revenue ndio hii county itaweza kufanya haya maendeleo ambayo tunayatazamia kufanya.
Na tunatarajia kwa vile mpaka unafunguliwa, serikali pia ya Kenya wataangalia positively ili kufungua barabara ya kutoka Kiunga mpaka hadi ya maeneo ya Hindi kule karibu na Mokoe.
Thank you for that. Now moving on, the consortium of grassroots civil society organizations and the general public have come out to express their solidarity with Director of Public Prosecutions Nuruddin Haji, who was recently appointed by the President to head the National Intelligence Services. Speaking during a press briefing when they presented a petition to the Public Service Commission at the Commission House in Nairobi, the consortium said they were shocked to learn that a section of the civil society have forgotten the journey that the DPP walked with them to ensure police reforms and defending the gains. They called on the vetting agencies to dismiss the baseless petitions and the petitioners and protect the sovereignty of the country.
We as members of grassroots community, we understand the sensitivity and importance of the national security, and we wouldn't like to play politics or take publicity stunt around such a delicate matter. But we are forced to respond and object when we see a section of the mainstream civil society play the ignorance card, dismissing the appointment of Nuruddin Haji on baseless ground, minus understanding the nature of the operation and the law of courts. It's shocking to learn that a section of the civil society have easily forgotten the journey that the Haji walked with them to ensure police reforms and defending the gains. Under Haji as DPP, the civil society, under a program dubbed The Missing Voice, organized several series of the community dialogues in Kayole, Aga Khan Walk, within the CBD, Nairobi, Isiolo, Wajir, Mombasa, and invited the DPP, who has been faithfully attending these meetings and taking cases from the public directly with most of the against powerful police officers that would have never seen the light were it not for Nuruddin Haji. Powerful police officers have been brought to book and are now serving time. The case on point being the former Ruaraka OCS, the infamous 3 police officers who murdered lawyer Willie Kimani, and several killers corpses currently interdicted, like the former Pangani OCS, Mr. Yakub. We therefore demand that the relevant vetting agency to dismiss the baseless petition and the petitioners and protect the sovereignty of our country.
Now, thank you for that. The county government of Garissa, in partnership with the State Department of Livestock Development, will roll out a baseline data survey that will help in the development of the Kenya Livestock Master Plan to implement the livestock policy. To actualize this exercise, a training of 203 enumerators from all the 7 sub-counties kicked off to help in household data collection, which is set to begin next week for a period of 15 days.
As a country, we are not having very accurate data on livestock, and we need to be able to get the baseline, because the last time the livestock census was done is way back 1970s. Now we want to do a baseline to be able to know at least how much, or in the terms of livestock resources, what we have as a country, what we have as a county.
Garissa is among the few counties that were actually selected as a pilot, and we are privileged and honored to Garissa to be one of the counties in actually northern frontiers to be given that priority, considering the fact that our people are majorly pastoral, and that is the backbone when it comes to the economy of our society. Thank you.
The reason why the enumerators have been brought on board is because they are the ones who are working with the communities at the village, because the unit of interest is the sublocation. So we want to collect as much data as accurate as possible from the sublocation level. So most of these enumerators have been recruited from their sublocations. That's where they'll be working to be able to bring out accurate data on livestock resources.
Thank you for that report, Maria Musa. Now, moving on, a section of residents from the northeastern are now calling for a borderless East Africa community in order to promote trade between countries in the region. Speaking during a public participation forum on the proposed political confederation of EAC held in Garissa County, Hassan Noor, a resident of Garissa, asked the committee to prioritize a borderless region that would ensure goods and services in the region move freely. The East African Community Summit is on course to draft the constitution for the proposed political confederation of East Africa Community that will help strengthen its political authority.
We are here with a team of experts, 3 from each country, who were appointed by the summit to collect the views of the people of East Africa in the now 7 countries. Originally there were 6, and use those views as a basis for drafting the constitution.
the social activities of the two countries or the East African Confederation, you find communities that are divided into different borders, which sometimes cannot access their own relatives. Now, with this confederation, it will give us an opportunity to be together, to visit, to remarry one another from our other communities on the neighboring sides. On the production side, you will find that there will be more resources available easily for the member states' citizens.
The issue of inclusivity, and especially on people who are able differently. That if there's no persons with special needs, if I put maybe the other language other persons understands, if they are not presented or not included in early policies or even a one letter actually giving them any percentage, that will going to eliminate them. So we're thinking, can we, in that issue of languages, can we have the sign language and worse as one of the national languages?
Thank you for that. Now moving on, the Food and Land Use Coalition, a global partnership that brings together businesses, governments, civil society and researchers to transform land use systems, held a workshop in Nairobi to discuss the critical transitions needed to move from agreements to action and address the global challenges of biodiversity loss, climate change and food insecurity. The workshop was held on this year's theme of From Agreement to Action, so participants discussed critical transitions identified by food and land use of shifting to regenerate agriculture, reducing food waste and protecting natural ecosystems.
Yeah, our theme this year really is from agreement to action, building back biodiversity. We gathered here to reflect on a process that we are working on. We developing the Kenya Food System and Land Use Action Plan 2023 to 2028. This really builds up from a wide discussion that took place from 2021 around food system. And the output really of our meeting here today is to come up with a clear action plan on what we need to do to be able to address the food system challenge in Kenya. Yeah, as you appreciate, the food system is quite broad, so it covers so many components. And for this particular work, we are looking at 4 specific components, both from the environment bit, from the food supply, from the food and nutrition elements. But what we are prioritizing for the context of Kenya, we've decided to prioritize on 5 critical areas. One of them is sustainable diets. The other one is on food loss, reducing food loss and waste. We also want to prioritize on issues around gender and demographics, ensuring they are involved in the food system, and also working very closely on issues around protecting and restoring our natural resource management, as well as ensuring that we're able to produce more sustainably and more equitably, sustainable production, right?
We've had almost a number of successive failed rains, and that actually has always dipped us into food insecurity, where you've had so many Kenyans actually have gone without food. And not only just the level of food security, but also the challenge where now even women and children are now getting malnourished. And you see that really it really concerns us as stakeholders in this space, because what happens is that every time we get our children not properly nourished and all that, there's usually the long-term impact, and that has always largely things to do with stunting, which eventually actually have been estimated to really also lead to serious economic losses. And actually in 2019 we had the Africa Union, of course in collaboration with the Treasury, doing what we call the cost of hunger study in Africa, and that was just to look at the different countries in the continent to estimate how much money the various countries are losing through undernutrition, and by that I mean children who are not performing in school, economical loss because people are sick, spend most of their time at home, they go to hospital, go to education, so health systems are overstretched.
Now, thank you for that. That last story brings us to the end of our first part of today's show, but we're going on a short break. Coming back, I'll be having the Friday Bulletin review together with none other than Ibrahim Lethome, so do not go anywhere.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Quote of the day. Imam Muhammad bin Idris al-Shafi'i said, "Whenever I voice my opinion or formulate a principle where something contrary to my view exists, on the authority of the Messenger of Allah, peace be upon him, then the correct view is what the Messenger of Allah, peace be upon him, has said, and it is my view."
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون.
Enyi mlioamini, munapoitwa kuhudhuria swala ya Ijumaa, fanyeni haraka kuikimbilia, muache biashara zenu, hilo ni bora ikiwa mwelewa.
Isikilizeni kwa umakinifu khutba ya Ijumaa
ili uzidi kujenga imani yako na kupata faida nyingi ya siku hii.
Coming to you every Friday from Jamia Mosque Nairobi.
Live on Horizon TV.
Verse of the day.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
ويوم نسير الجبال وترى الأرض بارزة وحشرناهم فلم نغادر منهم أحدا وعرضوا على ربك صفا لقد جئتمونا كما خلقناكم أول مرة بل زعمتم أن لن نجعل لكم موعدا.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for staying with us here on Horizon TV. And we're back after a short break with today's review of the Friday Bulletin. Joining me in studio is Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Nadia.
How are you this fine morning?
Alhamdulillah, very fine.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Horizon TV.
Thank you.
And today's front page of the Friday Bulletin, the top story is search for new Chief Qadi starts with 5 candidates lined up. What do you have to say about this?
I think this is very important for the Muslims because we know the position of the Chief Qadi. And as far as the Muslims are concerned, it's very important. Because, you know, we have this constitution, and even before the 2010 constitution,
yes, of
course, we had the Chief Qadis as a court that is entrenched in the constitution, a constitutional court. And the head of that court is the Chief Qadi. And, you know, for the Muslim community, the Chief Qadi has a dual role. One, as a judicial officer.
Yes.
Two, by virtue of the Chief Qadi being a scholar, because you cannot go to that position without being a Muslim religious scholar.
Yes.
So by virtue of being a scholar, we have assigned them certain roles. In Arabic we say urfan, I'll translate that. Urfan means customarily.
Yes.
As a custom, we expect them to play certain roles. Actually, you know, the Chief Qadi is viewed as the spokesperson of Muslims in this country.
Yes.
But if you look at the Constitution, you will not find that role in the Constitution. It is a role that he has been assigned by the community. So, a very important position. And that's why I think every Muslim should follow this process very keenly, so that at least we know every step. And of course, it might divide people, but we are appealing that it should not divide us, but can the best candidate take this position?
Yes. And just when you're saying people should be following it up very keenly,
yes.
This with the currently this is, I think, the first process that we're seeing. A lot of people have been following it up, and I can say that because of social media. We've been seeing the conversations going on social media. What would you say about social media playing a big role in obviously educating and informing the public?
Yeah, of course, you know, and social media, of course, has played a very big role, but sometimes it could be positive or negative, depending on what kind of information is peddled out there.
Yes.
Positive, that many people now can access information. They know from the corners of every corner of this country, and even beyond, they can be able to access information. Negative, that some people, you know, they peddle wrong information, sometimes negative information. And again, remember, the Muslim community has grown, the interest in the Chief Qadi's office, and even the Qadi's office has grown. It's a position, let me tell you, when I graduated myself, and actually people told us, why don't you join the judiciary as Qadis? Nobody was interested in the position. It was not a position that was coveted. But now, many people want to be in that position. And let's say also, let's not shy away from saying, even the terms of service have improved a lot. I remember those were days you could not have imagined that a judicial vehicle has been assigned, a judiciary vehicle has been assigned to the Chief Qadi and the Deputy Chief Qadi. Today, just go to Milimani, Sheikh Sukyan, the current Deputy Chief Qadi. He has a judiciary vehicle assigned to him with a driver. The Chief Qadi also. You know, the terms have also improved. And again, they have many people now who have studied. We have many people who have studied Sharia and law, and people want to be in that position. That's why it has attracted a lot of attention now.
Yes. And just, what are your expectations for the new Chief Qadi?
My expectation is that the Chief Qadi should be able to improve on what the predecessor did.
Yes.
For example, on the issues of controversy, sometimes not bearing on his judicial role, but the role that has been assigned to them by virtue of being a Muslim religious scholars.
Yes.
I think my expectation of the new Chief Qadi is that he should unite the Ummah.
Yes.
He should strive to unite the Ummah. He should also be consulting with the other Qadis.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, Nadia, the Chief Qadi will come from a certain region, a certain ethnic community, but he's the Chief Qadi for the whole country.
Yes,
we should not see that Chief Qadi as a Chief Qadi of a certain sect of Muslims or representing a certain ethnic community or a certain region. So unite the Muslims. Again, let the jurisprudence of the court grow. Don't stifle the court. And I'm saying this very deliberately. Because as a person who practiced in the Qadis courts, I know some of the Qadis, without mentioning names, in the past, the Chief Qadis, would want to limit the jurisdiction of the Qadis courts. And I'll give an example here, a very glaring one. The Chief Qadi, according to the law, the Constitution, the jurisdiction of the Qadis court is limited to matters of personal law, marriage, divorce, and inheritance. And for me, I would say, and other related matters for people who profess Islam and submit to the jurisdiction of the court. Number one, Nadia, for any person who is a Muslim, the question of submission should not arise. Because you're a Muslim. The Qadis court deals with قال الله تعالى, what Allah has said, قال رسول صلى الله عليه وسلم, Islam. So the moment you are a Muslim, you have submitted to the Qadis court, the jurisdiction of the Qadis court. So when you talk about limiting it, some Qadis actually say, oh, okay, the Qadi can handle a divorce matter, but when it comes to custody of children, go to the children's court. No, no, no. You're killing the Qadi's courts. Let it expand. Nadia, it is on record. When Sheikh Hamad was the Qadi in Nairobi, we took to him a burial matter. A Muslim had died, a prominent councillor, former councillor here in the city council of Nairobi here. So there was a tug of war between the family. Some of them said he has to be buried in a Christian way. Some of them said he has to be buried according to our culture. He was a Luya guy. So we rushed to the Qadhi's court. And he gave orders. This man, it has been proven beyond any doubt, he's a Muslim. I'm giving orders. He'll be buried at Karioko. But unfortunately, before we could get the body, somebody rushed to the High Court. And then we got a stay order. 6 months later, the High Court upheld the ruling by the Qadhi's court that yes, indeed, burial is a personal law matter. And the man was buried at Karioko here. It was called the Ramadhani Matanga. The records are there. So I would appeal to the Chief Qadhi, the next Chief Qadhi, whoever it will be, whoever will go through the vetting, please expand the jurisdiction. Let the court grow. So that's what I would want to say.
I love how you've mentioned that, and it's something not just the Chief Qadhi, but Muslims who are going to be listening to this. When it reaches a point where you feel like the Qadhi's decision does not favor you, there is no need to go to a different court.
I would say maybe as a lawyer and a person who has practiced there and also as a Muslim religious scholar, you see, the Qadhi is a human being. And you know, sitting there could be an error. You know, it's bound to error. So even within the Islamic system, judicial system, there is an appellate system. That if you're not satisfied with the ruling of the Qadhi, then you can go to the High Court. But the catch is this. You see, when you go to the Qadhi's courts, the laws, the substantive law applicable there is Islamic law. Now, if you're not satisfied with the ruling, I think it is within your right to appeal. But now, where do you appeal to? According to our judiciary, you appeal to the High Court, okay? Because this is a subordinate court. You go and appeal in the High Court. Now, the question is this. What law is applicable at that level? Do you totally ignore the Islamic law, and now you say, since you have come to the High Court, we are now going to ignore Islamic law? That is where the problem is. So the appeal is this. An appeal from the Qadhi's courts that ends up in the High Court should not ignore that this is an Islamic matter. So it's the applicable substantive law at that level is again Islamic law. And that's why whoever is presiding over the appeal from a Qadhi's court must be conversant with Islamic law. And that's why actually the law provides that at least the Chief Qadhi or 2 Qadhis will sit with the High Court judges when hearing an appeal from the Qadhi's courts. Otherwise, it will be injustice, total injustice, and it will be a mockery of Islamic law. Yeah, because you go down there, you're taken through a trial system where the substantive law is the Quran and the Sunnah. Then you go to the High Court, that is thrown out of the window, and now you say, no, here we're not going to consider Islamic law. That is wrong. And I would appeal to the next Chief Qadhi to ensure that this is what happens, because the law provides for that. So we need to make sure that this happens.
Your final on this, your final take on what would you tell Muslims, especially with this story?
Again, because we are hearing, our ears on the ground, we are also leaders by virtue of being in a place like Jamia Mosque here. Let this not divide us. We are hearing voices of people saying that it is a preserve of people from a certain region. Where does that come from? It is the most qualified Muslim in Kenya who should take that, regardless of the region. So it is not a preserve of any region. I'm hearing other people saying now, it is the turn of black Muslims. Who are these black Muslims, Nadia? I don't know. Do you know who these black Muslims are?
I have no idea.
Wrong. Nadia, the Prophet ﷺ warned us, and he said, this issue of tribalism. First of all, Nadia, let me tell you this. It is not wrong for a person to belong to a certain ethnicity.
It is true.
You didn't apply to be a Somali.
No,
you Maasai Somali. I didn't apply to be a Maasai. We found ourselves there. And it's in the Quran. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. So there is no problem. The problem is now when we use ethnicity, like we feel we are better than the others. That is wrong. So the Prophet ﷺ about this issue, he said, دَعُوهَا فَإِنَّهَا مُنْتِنَا. Can you stop this thing of negative ethnicity? Muntina in Arabic means it stinks. Inanuka, vibaya sana. I don't know how in Kisomali you would say inanuka. It's bad. So can you stop it? So I'm appealing to Muslims in this country. Please, let us not be divided along ethnic lines. We are all Muslims. Let the best candidate take this position, and all of us should rally behind them and support them, inshallah.
Thank you so much, Sheikh. Very, very interesting conversation.
Yep.
Now, moving on to the next topic, still on the front page of today's Friday Bulletin, where we're seeing religious reforms to proceed unhindered. And these are the sentiments of the Cabinet Secretary, Kithure Kindiki. I know that this is something that has been going on the news, if not for the past 2 months, where we saw, I don't want to say, but I will say religious extremism.
Yes,
I'll call it as it is.
It is exactly
and this
that.
is following what happened in Shakahola. And we're seeing that the government, other than President William Ruto having a task force formed to look into this, we're seeing that Interior Cabinet Secretary is proposing religious reforms. And I know this is something that you are very well knowledgeable on. What would you say about religious reforms, especially in a time where people are coming out and opposing it in the statements of, wouldn't that hinder the freedoms that we have in the Constitution when it comes to freedom of religion and worship?
Yeah. Nadia, one thing that people should understand is this. Yes, we have the Bill of Rights, which has provided for these fundamental human rights.
Yes.
But let me tell you one thing that people forget, that we cannot have rights without limitations. There are no absolute rights.
Yes.
And they say this, I like using this example. Your freedom to swing your hands as you're walking ends where my nose begins.
Yes.
You know, you cannot, Nadia, swing your hands and then hit my nose and you say, I'm exercising my freedom. So every freedom has a limitation. No absolute freedom. So yes, the Constitution has given us the freedom of worship.
Yes.
It's a fundamental right. And you know, it is not given by the government. I say it's God-given. In law, they say it is the right that you have by virtue of being a human being, then you have those rights. They cannot be taken away, but they have limitations. Your rights ends where the rights of another person begins.
Yes.
Because when you talk about the incident of Shakahola, the first right under the Constitution, under the Bill of Rights, is the right to life. If you look at the International Declaration on Human Rights, the first right is life. Because without life, you cannot enjoy the other rights.
That's true.
Now, do you exercise the freedom of worship at the expense of life? The answer is no. So that is the limit. At the expense of life, you cannot say, I'm exercising freedom of worship. So I agree, there has to be limitations. Religion is not meant to be harmful to people. I want to believe the purpose of religion is to make sure that human beings live well in this world as we prepare for the hereafter. Because I have to live in this world. I'm not going to heaven perpendicularly. Nadia, we have to live in this world. Religion guides us on how we live in this world as we prepare for the hereafter. Religion cannot be the cause of difficulties in this world and people suffering and dying here and starving to death. So I totally agree with the professor. There has to be rules and regulation because religion has been abused. And Nadia, you know, the power of religion. If you look at what has happened in Shakahola, religious narratives have been packaged in such a way that people are starving themselves to death. That is the power of religion.
Well, point whereby, Sheikh, we're seeing that even those who have been rescued are still refusing to be assisted. The
power of religious narratives. Even when we talk about terrorism, that is, instigated or ideology whereby we have religious aspirations, it's so powerful. Somebody goes and commits suicide, blows himself up. And if you ask them at that moment of blowing themselves, they say, I believe I'm going to a better place. Why are you killing these people? I believe it is godly to kill these people. Because religion has been misused to brainwash them to the extent that they believe whatever they are doing, that God is pleased with that. Which God is this? So I think I want to agree, religion is being misused. And it is across the board. For this case, it is a person who is claiming to be a Christian clergy who is misusing Christianity. And if you look at the history of humanity, at one time, even in Japan, we had the kamikaze suicide bombers during the World War II. Religion was used. The Tamil Tigers also used the religion. In America, we have a group called the Ku Klux Klan. They also misuse the religion. LRA across here in Uganda, they are using religion. So if religion is not regulated, if you do not take care, then people, you know, human nature, unless there are controls, then people will overstep that. But the danger is this, we might end up now stifling religion. So there has to be a balance. And that's why I'm happy with the task force that has been put in place, which brings together most of the different religions that we have in this country.
Yes.
Because the regulations, whatever regulations we end up with, they must be sensitive to each religion. And we are not homogeneous. Each religion has its own do's and don'ts, and also its concept of worship and the rest. For example, for a Muslim, even the dress code is part of your religion.
Yes.
You know, the way you dress is part of your religion. Yes. For some religious communities, religion is what you do on a particular day, you know, in a specific place, specific time, some specific rituals. For other people, it is their daily life that is religion. So this regulation should take into consideration the sensitivities of every religion. So it's like more of, you people, religious communities, can you self-regulate? Can we help you self-regulate? Can you be able to control your people so that they don't cross the red line? Can you control your people so that they do not misuse religion for criminal activities like what you've seen?
Yes.
Some because of economic reasons. There are people who have enriched themselves. Nadia, do you know that you're told that these days the easiest way to become rich is either join politics or
religion, use religion.
Yeah.
And it's something that the CS also mentioned when he was giving the speech, where he said, he was speaking at a church and he said, he told the clergy that was present, stop asking for tithes and, you know, sadaka and this, because they don't use it for, obviously for the right reasons, to go build mansions and buy expensive cars. And this is something that people have been seeing going on. And it's now out there, and now they're being told that, you know what, there needs to be a limit, then there needs to be a point where you're stopped. And unfortunately, we're seeing fellow clergy people coming out and opposing it. What would you tell anyone who's opposing this?
I'll tell them, I think it is wrong, it is misplaced, that opposition is misplaced. We have lost lives, many people have been misled, you know. We have so many rogue clergy out there. No, they need to be harnessed. And you know, the government is carrying out its duty. Because at the end of the day, the security of people and property in this country is a primary duty of the government of Kenya. The government of Kenya cannot just sit down. Any government worth its name cannot just sit down and watch these things going on. This has to be regulated. And if any individual within the clergy, you know, they feel that this should not be done, they should come up and say exactly what are they opposed to. Can anybody come and say, in the name of God, we want to allow people to continue doing this? It is wrong. From whichever way you look at it, it is wrong. So unless they have some vested interest, Nadia, I don't see why anybody should be opposed this. One thing again, and we have to keep on repeating it, and we have said it as the Muslim community, we do support that, but it should be sensitive to the religious community. It should not be seen as a clawback. You know, under the old constitution, we had something called the clawback clauses. You know, one clause gives you the rights, then the other clause takes away the rights. So you end up without a right. So we don't want these regulations to serve as clawback clauses, that all the gains that we have made, all the space that has been created by the new constitution, that should not be reduced by these regulations. It should be what is in the best interest of Kenyans. How can religion be used for the purpose that it was intended?
Yes, and just to mention our neighbors in Rwanda, we saw that news, I think a year or two ago, where President Kagame came out and said he will not allow religious leaders to play with people's religion, where he said, if you're going to be a clergy, if you're going to be an imam, you have to have the proper certificates for this. Do you think this is something that can be done in Kenya?
I want to agree. In the circumstances that we are in, I think we have so many self-proclaimed religious leaders. And because of the power of religion and also the nature of human beings, a person comes up and says, and especially if he's a good orator, a good speaker, you'll get followings, you know. You know, even a mad person standing outside there and preaching, you'll find a group of people, you know, coming there. So I think it's important to know who is this, because even as the Muslim community, we have suffered a lot as a community, whereby a self-proclaimed scholar comes in, he has a following and misleads the youth. We have lost so many youth because of that. So I agree. We need to ask ourselves, what qualifications do we need for a person now to be regarded as a religious leader? So I want to agree. mostly it's not just academic. It should not just be academic.
But
there should be many other things that besides the academic qualification,
yes,
because knowledge is very important.
it is.
And for us Muslims, remember the first verse to be revealed to the Prophet ﷺ is not worship,
yes, it was
read. Because knowledge is very important. Because without knowledge, you will go to the wrong direction.
It is true.
For you to know the right thing, then, and remember, as a religious leaders, you are entrusted now. You're like the custodians of the religious teachings.
Yes.
Many people will rely on how you interpret it for them. And you know, for many people, they don't question it. The Sheikh has said,
yeah, Sheikh has said.
Period. It's unquestionable. The bishop has said it is unquestionable. So this person in whose hands we are entrusting the lives of millions of people, no, we should know what kind of a person he is. Even the mental, whether this person is mentally okay or not, because some people might even be mental. So they should also be tested whether they are mentally upright. Some people might be mad. A person who tells people to starve to death, is that a normal person? You know, it might be under the influence of drugs or maybe mentally sick.
Yes.
So I support this, but again, be sensitive to the religious values.
Thank you for that, Sheikh. Now, moving on to the next story that I want us to discuss, and that is on the second page of today's Friday Bulletin, where Kenyans stare at new digital ID plan after Huduma number. And I know this is going to bring a lot of, not just confusion, but a lot of anger, I think, from fellow Kenyans, because Huduma number came, we've not seen the use of it, and then now you want to bring in something. What would you say about this, Sheikh Lethome?
No, I think Kenyans, you know, have been tested to the limits. Do you know, as you're talking, I have that card in my pocket here.
I have no idea where mine is.
Oof. And I remember the queuing because there was a deadline.
Yes.
You need this Huduma number.
Yes.
You know, so we queue. I remember I was lucky. I was somewhere in an office,
yes,
and there happened to be a young lady, a daughter to a friend of mine, who knew somebody. So they were called to the office, and all these particulars were taken. We
yes,
filled the forms, and then we were given that waiting number.
Yes.
Then one day I received a call from Kajiado. Your Huduma number is ready. So I was so excited. I got it. Then after that, it doesn't work. I have it in my pocket. So I think before it is reintroduced, I think we need to, there are so many, it's not a priority for me.
Exactly.
There are so many things that are a priority.
Yes.
Unga is a priority.
It's true.
People are talking about the house levy here.
Yes.
No, there are so many things that are a priority. Right now, please government, this is not a priority. And especially after what we went through, Nadia,
yes,
can it be shelved until for later?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you see, at one point, Kenyans were told, if you do not have the Huduma number, you will not get services from any government office.
Yes.
That means ID cards, that means birth certificate, that means passports.
Yes.
And you can't be helped. And then now you want to take Kenyans through this.
And remember, it is going to cost us money.
Yes.
Because printing of those cards and the rest, we need also the human resource and a lot of things. I think, no, we don't need it. This is my Huduma card. I have my Huduma card here.
I've never even seen how
I don't use it. This is one. It doesn't work.
And now you have to go get another one.
I don't need it. Let me carry my driving license and my old ID.
I love how you said there are many priorities, and you've even mentioned the current housing.
This costed Kenyans money.
Yes.
You know, somebody was employed to do this. The machines that were put in place.
It's true.
Please, can we take that money to Unga?
Yes.
Thank you.
There are many issues that are facing Kenyans. I mean, basic healthcare.
Yeah.
We're not giving people as quality healthcare as they should be receiving.
Exactly.
Education, teachers are scarce in some regions in Kenya.
Yeah.
We're talking about food.
Yes.
The cost of living is very high. So this, as you mentioned, Sheikh Lethome, this is something that should be shelved and probably not mentioned ever again.
Yeah, actually.
And now we're going to the next story, where we're seeing Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja has appointed Muslims to boards of city hospitals, which is it's a very nice move by the governor. What would you say about this, Sheikh Lethome?
No, I think that's good because of inclusivity.
Yes.
I think it's always important for us to appreciate that we are diverse. And if you look at our constitution, it talks about we are proud of our ethnic, religious, and cultural diversity.
Yes.
And we want to embrace that diversity. So in whatever place, I think it's important to see the face of Kenya there. And in these hospitals, we need different views. We need the value. Each one of them brings a value that is important. So, and again, that element of ownership.
Yes.
You know, when you see that you're represented there, you, instead of saying, here hospitalia, you feel it's ours because we are also represented there. Our views are taken into consideration. I think this is very important, and I want to laud the governor.
Yes.
And I think this should be replicated elsewhere. Let us see inclusivity don't leave anybody out there.
Yes.
Let's all move together as Kenyans.
I'm being reminded because of time
Yes.
that we're not able to finish the review of today's Friday Bulletin, but just on one story that I really want you to touch on, and
Yes.
this is Garissa County just recently launched the first biggest oxygen plant. And for a county that was paying a lot of money, and these are the sentiments of the governor, Nadia Osman, and he mentions how during COVID, that's when, you know, obviously the necessity of now the oxygen plants, the reason why they've brought it into Garissa County, and now they're planning on saving nearly 500,000 Kenyan shillings every month. What would you say about this, especially to other counties?
Yeah, you see, one of the beautiful things that has happened to this country is devolution. You know, this would not have happened if it was not for devolution. And one of the reasons why we went the direction of devolution is to bring governance closer to the people, so that the people at the ground level will make decisions on what their priorities are.
Yes.
You see, if that decision was to be made at the national level, maybe it's not a priority for the national government.
Yes.
But you see, the governor is sitting there. These are his people. He knows what they need. And because devolution has given them the powers and resources, and that's why they have been able to come with this. So this is a very commendable move to the governor and the people of Garissa, and it should be replicated in other places.
Yes.
You see the crisis we had during the COVID-19, oxygen. I believe we would have saved, Allahu Alam, would have saved some lives. We had oxygen easily accessible to the people in those in the counties. So this is very laudable, very commendable. Congratulations, Governor Nadif. Can that be replicated in other counties?
I love how you've mentioned the reason why we have the devolved government. For somebody who never actually, personally, never actually saw the importance, because every single time you hear the news, somebody is in court because of probably theft or draft allegations. You wonder what was the need for devolution at this point, if it was just to still at a county level. But now, alhamdulillah, you've mentioned the importance of having a devolved government.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Sheikh Lethome, and I think that brings us to the end of our show. But before we finish, any final comments or statements that you would like to make?
I think what I would want to say is that we as Kenyans, we should embrace diversity and remember that it's not by accident that we have Muslims, Christians and other people and different tribes in this country. It is God's plan.
Yes.
So can we peacefully coexist with one another and be each other's keepers?
Yes.
That's my message for
Thank
today.
you so much. It's been a lovely and fun session with you.
Thank
I
you.
think that brings us to the end of our show, because I'm being reminded time is not on our side. Once again, thank you so much for staying with us here on Horizon TV. This was the Muslim Insight. Every Friday, 8 a.m., where we bring you stories affecting the Muslim community in Kenya and around the world, as well as a review of the Friday Bulletin, the only Muslim news bulletin in the country. My name is Nadia Osman, and my sign language interpreter was Ilhan Noor. Ma'as salam.